Well, hi there. This is a video of something that we, at least like as the formal scientific community, had never documented until fairly recently. What this is a nursing humpback whale, which is something you really might not think about much, but it is a mammal. You can tell it's a humpback whale specifically. I mean, obviously, I think it's a whale, and you can tell it's probably some sort of a baleen whale, a lot by those kind of those lines that come down the face. Those allow the whole throat area to expand massively on baleen whales when they're grabbing a whole bunch of ocean water full of krill and other small animals, and then they filter it out by pushing that water out through this hair-like baleen that they've got and just filtering out all the animals and then swallowing them down. But that they need those big expansion grooves, and you can kind of see in the baby's mouth too, something like unto baleen. The way that you can identify this specifically as a humpback whale really comes down to those really big pectoral fins. Humpback whales have way longer pectoral fins, and they've kind of got those little knobs on them. They're a much gnarlier looking whale than most. And so this is really, really clearly a humpback whale. As far as nursing goes, that is something I hadn't really given much thought until not very long ago. It's something I grew up going to the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, and they had a diorama of a nursing manatee. It comes up and the mammary glands and nipples are up sort of underneath the front flippers on a manatee. That was maybe sort of the first time I ever thought about marine mammals nursing. Seals and other pinnipeds have something kind of similar. They've got nipples that are everted most of the time, and then they kind of pop them out when they need to nurse. But whales, the difference between whales and things like manatees and dugongs and pinnipeds is all of those animals have flexible lips. They can get a pretty good seal and nurse in a sort of traditional way. How do whales do it? That's tricky. That's a tricky one because they've got much more rigid heads generally, often no flexible lips, nothing that they could really use to get a great seal. And where even are the mammary glands on whales? Well, it turns out, and you actually see this fairly well here, whales have what is called a mammary slit. They've actually got two of them, paired mammary slits, and they really do kind of fire milk out. The baby will come up and nudge the belly of the mother, and then she will fire milk into the baby's mouth. And that is so stinking rad. Whales have the largest mammary glands of any animals on Earth. With all of that said, I'm pretty confident that this video is AI. It for the most part looks really, really convincing. It's a very, very realistic looking depiction of whales nursing, and you'd have to know a lot about either whale anatomy or whale evolution in order to understand what's wrong here. For starters, I'll kind of show you. You can see the milk gets fired out from right about dead center of the chest, right around the pectoral girdle, not too far away from where it would happen in a manatee. The thing is, manatees are Afrotherians, like elephants, and that is where the mammary glands are on elephants. Whales are not Afrotherians. Whales are ungulates, like a cow or a horse. And so their mammary glands are actually located back by the pelvic girdle, in more the location where you would find it on a cow or a horse, not up here where you would find it on an elephant. Additionally, they don't have just one of these slits. If you notice, that slit is kind of like dead center of the chest, and there just appears to be one. They've actually got two mammary slits, one on either side, and again, back near the back. However, I didn't know that, it would have been very, very difficult to pick this out as being an AI video.
Okay, Clint, I'm glad you pointed that out, because that is one subject that I want to have you discuss today. It's been a while since we last did one of these videos, and a lot has changed since the last one. AI videos are everywhere, so I'd love it if you could quickly introduce yourself and then share your thoughts about AI animal videos and what that means for our future. And then I will tell you about today's categories, because they are all new.
Okay. Well, my name is Clint LOVES. I have an undergraduate degree in zoology and biology, a double major. And then I got a master's and a PhD in biology, studying evolutionary ecology and specifically life history evolution and biology education. Today, I, with my wife, Leisha, run Clint's Reptile Room, which is in Springville, Utah, as well as Clint's Life Science Academy, which is where we are right now. And we are right now in the middle of our Life Science Academy summer camps, and we're about to resume our university level courses this fall. If people are interested in that, get more information about all of that at clintsreptiles.com. And as for my thoughts on AI animal videos, AI animal videos make me sad. Mostly because I can tell that the era where I could be amazed by a video about animals is coming to an end. And honestly, like a large percentage of all of the amazing experiences that I've had observing animals have been through animal videos. It's the same thing that happened with photography a few decades ago when Photoshop started to allow people to manufacture fake photos that were nearly indistinguishable from real life. Once that was commonplace, it became my default to assume that any photo that fell outside of what I already knew to exist was probably fake. But video was still kind of different. Pics didn't mean that it happened, but video was still pretty solid. But not anymore. Right now, I can still spot issues with anatomy and behavior that allow me to identify fake videos, like we did with the whale. And I can do this with a pretty high degree of accuracy. But I think that it's already past the point that most people would not be able to tell. And it's going to pass by me pretty soon. So pretty soon I won't be able to trust anything amazing unless I have tons of confidence in the source. And that's a real shame to me. Animal videos have brought so much wonder into my life, and that's coming to an end. And I've been thinking about it. It's crazy that in all of human history, like the time where people could really be amazed by animal video only lasted a couple of generations.
I'm hoping that with your help we can know a little better what is AI and what isn't AI. So I'm going to start you off with a category of videos I'm pretty sure are real, but I'm not sure what I'm looking at. And we're going to call it, what am I looking at here?
Okay.
Then we'll look at a bunch of really cool videos that might be a little too amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll play a game, truth or AI. And then we're going to look at some dangerous videos, but I want you to tell us, how much danger was it really?
Okay.
Then we have some videos that have some amazing information in them. I just want to know, is it true?
Okay.
But let's start with, what am I looking at here?
All right. Squishy. So those are the soles of kangaroo feet, which they look pretty crazy. I mean, the kangaroo feet, if you really look at them, even from above, they look pretty wild. But this really lets you see some of the crazier aspects of kangaroo feet. I'll start with the fact that kangaroos, well, this whole thing is the foot. Kangaroos, when they're up hopping, they're what's called digitigrade. So they're up on their toes and just bouncing. And that's probably the posture we're more used to seeing from kangaroos, which is why the fact that the soles go all the way back to what a lot of people would think is a backwards knee, it's not, it's just their heel, but because they're normally up on their toes, that long foot looks like a piece of the leg. And so they're digitigrade when they're hopping, but when they're standing or they're walking, they're plantigrade. So they, just like you do, they put the whole foot on the ground when they're standing there. And then they have the most ridiculous walking gait because they can't step one foot at a time forward. They can't walk. So if they're moving too slowly to be bounding where they go, they need to get 5 limbs involved, which means both forelimbs, both hind limbs, and their tail. It's called a pentapedal gait. And so that's the way that they walk, and that whole foot ends up on the ground. And so they've got a pad down the entire foot. Being macropods, they've got this also very strange, very, very strange toe arrangement. At a glance, it's kind of similar to what you would see maybe on a theropod dinosaur, like a chicken, in that it looks like they've got kind of 3 toes on the ground. Technically, there are 4, but 2 of them are all fused together, and you can actually see that pretty well here in this video. So in macropods, they're missing their first toe. So like the big toe is gone. Their second and third toe are fused together. They look like a single toe, except there are 2 claws coming off of it. And then their fourth toe is enormous. It's like the main toe that they use for everything. You know, they could almost get away with just having that fourth toe, and then they've got a fairly big 5th toe on the other side. So you got toes 2 and 3 and 5 that kind of look like small toes, and then this 4th toe is just colossal, and that's the basic structure of a kangaroo foot. What a crazy creature. I will tell you, I did not know that these were this kind of weird until I had one in my saltwater aquarium. This is a conch snail, and they are such weird creatures. They're so very weird. I'll start with their alien eyeballs, because I love them. So those eyes that are on eye stalks, they've got actually a really advanced camera style eye. If you look at the eyes, like if you look at the eyes up close, like they look extremely human. So that's weird because nothing else about them is human-like at all. They've, in addition to those eye stalks, they've also got a giant siphon. So that's like an elephant trunk that goes around. So they got an elephant trunk. They got these human eyes on crazy alien eye stalks. And then they've got this giant claw thing, which is actually, so this is a snail. And if you've seen a lot of snails have a second valve, you know, a little extra piece of shell that they can move to seal up the entrance. It's called the operculum. On conch snails, it's modified into like a claw, almost like a crab leg, sort of a claw thing. That's what it's, you know, got wrapping all around everywhere there. They use that claw as their main way of moving around. It's called leaping locomotion. And they just stick the claw in the ground and then they go whoop, and they just kind of fling themselves forward. You saw how like radical it is with the way it moves it. Well, that's how they move it. Just click, and then they just throw themselves forward and then they do it again. They are absolute aliens and I love them. Okay, so this is a wonderful creature. This is a kiwi, and it's kind of a kiwi up close. So we're getting a really good look at some of the finer details of a kiwi that you don't always get a really good look at. One of the things that they show you are well, they show you the beak, and the beak is super cool. We'll talk about the beak in a second. But they also show you up around the beak. You've got these little kind of whisker-like bristles. They're called vibrissae, and they are what they look like. They're very touch-sensitive little bristles. In addition to that, they've got that long beak, which is also extremely touch-sensitive, and then nostrils near the end of the beak, though it's not as unusual as I long thought of it as being. So the sense of smell is actually really important for kiwis, which is not commonly the case for birds. And sense of touch is also extremely important for kiwis. A sense that's not important for kiwis, as far as we can tell, is vision. They have tiny eyes, and interestingly enough, there are kiwis that have a condition that causes them to go completely blind. And there is no measurable difference in how well the totally blind ones do versus those that see. Vision just doesn't matter for kiwis. This is an interesting thing, but kiwis are often thought of as being nocturnal, but they actually are only nocturnal in areas where there are predators. Where there are no predators, they're active day or night. It doesn't really matter for them. I told you, nostrils at the end of the nose is an unusual thing for birds, generally speaking. But it's something I really got to thinking about recently when I was in Australia. I was spending a lot of time around other paleognath birds. So these are part of the Paleognathi, which are the basalmost lineage of birds. It's things like ostriches, emus, cassowaries, rheas, kiwis, also elephant birds and moas, tinamous. But what I hadn't thought about, and then I started looking at these birds, is having your nostrils up high is a common thing for birds now, but it's actually an unusual location for the nostrils on a theropod dinosaur. And so I got to thinking, like, is that actually the ancestral location of the nostrils? And what I did notice is on many of the paleognath birds, the nostrils are right where you'd expect them to be on a theropod dinosaur. They're down near the end of the beak. And so I often thought that the nostrils on kiwis had migrated to the end of the beak because they use them for smell so much. They're basically like shrews that happen to be birds in New Zealand. However, as I look at their close relatives, I don't think their nostrils in their lineage were ever up near the top of the beak. I think they've always been somewhere near the tip. That's maybe just a little bit more accentuated now.
For nearly 10 years, been making wildlife videos, but I have no idea what it is that I'm holding in my hand right now.
Okay, well, this is a harvestman. It's hard to say which one without knowing, for starters, where he is. But I will say, this is a brave guy. I mean, I was told when I was a kid that harvestmen were the most venomous spiders on Earth. Unfortunately, at least the ones near where I grew up, their fangs were too small to bite you. But at this size, yeah, I don't know. It's probably a good thing that they don't have any fangs or venom. They're also not spiders. But they are on Earth. That part is true. I love harvestmen. They are like spiders. They're arachnids, but they're a different group of arachnids. They have 8 walking legs. They got 2 pedipalps and chelicerae, which are claw-like mouthparts. In spiders, those have been modified into fangs, but in the other chelicerates, like scorpions, whip spiders, and things like that, especially you can really see them well on sulfugids, the sun spiders. They're still claw-like. Chelicera means claw, and so they're claw-like mouthparts. In harvestmen, they're still that. They're little. This one is particularly rad. We found some really cool ones like this down in the Amazon rainforest, and so could be one of those. I don't know which one, but definitely a harvestman. Totally awesome animal. Wow. That is amazing. So that is what it would look like if a T-Rex was ever trying to decide if it should eat you or not. That specifically is a shoebill. Not a shoebill stork. People used to call them that because we used to think they were storks. They're actually closer to cormorants, pelicans, and their closest relatives are hammerkops, which I know well because we had one in the Pangani Forest when I worked there at Disney's Animal Kingdom. These are all rad birds, just rad as heck. And honestly, like, we should make a video about this group. What I can tell you is vocalization like that, as far as I know, is rare. What I usually see from these guys when they make sound is a rapid kind of bill clattering that they do, the chattering of their bill. That's really cool too, but I've never heard these sounds before. That was awesome.
Okay, very cool. So those were all things that I was pretty sure were real, but strange nonetheless. But these next things seem to be a bit fishy to me. So I want to play the game of truth or AI.
Okay.
If truth, tell us what it is. If AI, tell us how you spotted it.
Okay. Okay.
Now remember, this isn't truth or karaoke. you don't have the option to sing. Okay?
I may sing.
You'll have to stand up on the desk if you sing.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy, what you doing on my porch, huh? Here, let me pet you. Oh, God!
Now, Suge, I knew just as soon as you walked on that porch and saw that porcupine what was about to happen. I really did, and you should know better.
All right, what he didn't know is that was totally AI. One really obvious thing at the beginning was it switches from being a North American porcupine that is kind of covered in quills everywhere to being an African porcupine that just has quills at the back. But most importantly of all, it fires the quills. No porcupines do that. That's a commonly held misconception because the quills on North American porcupines are barbed and detachable. So if you run into an American porcupine, any of the New World porcupines, if you run into a New World porcupine, once you move back, some of the quills are going to stay in you. And it might feel like they got fired at you. You know, you're going to find them in your dog and all that kind of stuff. They got all these barbed quills stuck in them. However, they can't fire them. They can't cover any distance. You have to make contact with the quills and then they'll stay with you, kind of like a cactus. African porcupines, which is what this turns into at the end, their quills aren't detachable. They just come mostly off the hindquarters. Keep in mind, you know, and if you've seen our documentary on rodents, African porcupines and North American porcupines are not closely related to each other. Just being a spiky rodent, that works. And so being spiky is working for both of them, but the way they do it is very different. You don't have the barbed detachable quills in the African porcupines. And again, neither of them can fire quills. AI. I will tell you, I've had several experiences with wild American porcupines, New World porcupines, all of them super positive. We found North American porcupines here in Utah. Like, anytime I see one, like, I'm going to get close to it. Porcupines are well enough defended that they don't need to be very defensive. They're going to try to slowly get away from you, but they don't need to be super defensive animals, and so they're pretty chill. And so I can get out and take pictures of them. They're not going to shoot any quills at you, so as long as you don't run all the way into it, you should be fine. I will tell you, my closest call with a porcupine was also the most endearing and delightful experience I've had with a porcupine, which was on our first night in the Amazon. We went road cruising before we really went out into the jungle. And we encountered this prehensile-tailed porcupine on the road, and it was so delightful. It was definitely wanting to climb up my leg. Like, it knew I was there. It was coming towards me. It was going to climb up my leg, which probably would have been fine, but I didn't know exactly how I felt about having a porcupine on me. You know, in retrospect, I should have maybe just seen where that went, but that seemed like a bit of a risk at the time. But it was, it was totally unafraid. And these little arboreal South American porcupines they're so cool. And it was adorable. And porcupines have a special place in my heart almost exclusively because of that experience. Wow. Okay, so that is real. That's a telescope fish. Obviously, everything about it is kind of crazy looking, but probably the craziest looking thing of all are their telescope eyeballs. They've got tube eyes, which is odd. Usually we think of eyeballs as being spheres. This is actually something that they have in common with jumping spiders, which have very, very good vision for being such little animals. And a big part of this is visual acuity, generally speaking, is based on absolute eye size, not relative eye size. So if you're small, you need disproportionately enormous eyes in order to see very well. In the case of these guys, if you live in dark places and you're going to see well, you need disproportionately huge eyes, but you actually don't need the whole sphere. You just need a pretty big gap between the lens and the retina. And so these guys, instead of having a gigantic sphere of an eyeball, just have essentially the gap between the lens and the retina, so that they have effectively a giant eyeball in a much smaller area. Now these guys, a lot of times during the day, they're in very deep waters. At night, they undergo what's called a diel, vertical migration, so they go up into shallower water. And so you could actually end up seeing one of these if you went on a night dive, which is a concept that I find simultaneously amazing and terrifying. The idea of being out in the ocean at night when visibility is very poor is a very frightening concept, but also you would see some unbelievable stuff, and this is one of those things that you might see. And tragically, unless you actually saw one in person, in the not so distant future, this would easily be an animal that you might not believe exists. Okay, so I was a little bit on the fence for the first little bit of that video. Mostly the way that its mouth was opening when it was rubbing on him. If it weren't for the fact that this is an animal that sticks its tongue out regularly to smell, I wouldn't think it would open its mouth quite that often. However, as I watched more, especially the way that it was doing those curious little tongue flicks near the end, I'm very, very confident this is real. But this activity is a little bit on the risky side. This is a Gila monster. If it bit him, I will say the likelihood of him dying is astronomically small. We did have somebody die just a couple of years ago. That was the first person ever on record to have died from the venom of a Gila monster, at least in the last many, many, many decades. But in general, the venom of a Gila monster shouldn't kill you. That was a very, very freaky situation. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. I would say if I were socializing a Gila, I'd be very reluctant to let it push its snout into me like that. A lot of times for various different reasons. Reptiles will do that before they do a little test bite. Sometimes, that one's young, so I wouldn't be as worried about it. But males, a lot of times, will do that before they do a little test bite. They'll test bite onto females because kind of biting on back near the neck is often part of mating. And so they'll do a little test bite somewhere to see if the female runs them off or if she's like, yeah, that was all right. Because if that's okay with her, then they'll go for a little bit more. I've seen other lizards do a little flirtatious nibble like that, and I wouldn't want a flirtatious nibble from the teeth and venom of a Gila monster. The venom won't kill you, but look at these teeth. Those are not the kind of teeth that you want in you. And I want to mention that I, for a long time, underappreciated how much squamate reptiles like touch. Touch is very important to them. Touch is a major part of the way that they interact with each other. Touch, if you flip over a log and find, say, 3 snakes under there or a couple of lizards, most of the time they're going to be in contact with each other. The way that you touch a squamate reptile can dramatically influence the way that it behaves. Touch matters to these animals, and you could see there that it was the one initiating the touch. Really cool. There's a lot more going on with these animals than I think most of us realize. So that is AI. The turtle it's trying to depict looks to me like a mix between a common and an alligator snapping turtle. There are hybrids that exist in the real world, but that's not what this is. This is, well, okay, for starters, like, it's all in on, okay, so I'm looking at the neck here at the end. The neck looks crazy, but also it's got the shell of an alligator snapping turtle. It's got the head and neck of a common snapping turtle, but the jaws of an alligator snapping turtle and the tongue of a common snapping turtle, and then the stance of the Karate Kid. Yeah, AI. Okay, that is not only real, but that is an absolutely amazing shark. It's a bucket list shark for me for sure. One I've rarely even seen video of it, and this is one that probably a few years from now I might not have believed was real if I didn't already know about them. This is the winghead shark. It has proportionally the largest cephalofoil of all hammerheads. Makes up like 40 to 50% of the total length of the shark. So if you take the whole length of the shark, up to half of that is the width of just the cephalofoil. We go, I know, into great detail about these guys in our full phylogeny of hammerheads. They are the hagfish of hammerhead sharks, and while probably not my favorite one, because I pretty much love all the hammerheads actually, but this is the most unusual one and probably the one I would be the most excited to actually get to see in person. Amazing. Well, that is something you don't see every day. That is real. That is a juvenile flounder. And flounders are weird and wonderful fish. So, so if you've seen a flounder, if you kind of know what they are, flounders live their lives kind of like stingrays. They lay flat on the bottom of the ocean, largely bury themselves. They're very good at changing colors. They have incredible color change abilities. I mean, like a cuttlefish. And they just lay there with just their two little eyeballs sticking out and what looks like maybe their dorsal fin sticking out. It is weird to see a teleost fish that is that dorsoventrally compressed. Usually teleost fishes are laterally compressed. And as it turns out, flounders are also laterally compressed. In fact, if you look at them, if you look at this one, it looks weird. It's a weird looking fish because it's see-through and you can see through its organs and stuff, but its basic proportions are kind of normal fish stuff. Why it doesn't look like a flounder normally looks is because what happens as they age is they'll start to just, well, one of their eyes will migrate from one side of the head to the other side of the head, and then suddenly both eyes will be on the same side of the head and they will just lie down. If you look at them when they're done, their mouth is still, it's sideways. They've got one gill on the top, one on the bottom. That thing that sticks up that looks like a dorsal fin, actually one of their pectoral fins. They are just a sideways fish with two eyes on one side of their head. And which eye migrates to the other side is actually a trait that you can use to identify different flounders, because it varies by lineage which eye goes where. And so anyway, absolutely remarkable fish, but something you don't see very often in the stage in its development before the eye makes the migration. Aren't animal videos amazing? Like, this is real. This is, I don't remember what species, but it's a heron from somewhere between, these live like in northern South America and Central America. And they have a really long, pointy beak. I'm trying to remember all the details on why they walk like that, but a lot of it is just so that they can keep their head still and get a good look at things. And then what they do with that beak, it's long and skinny, which is good for grabbing fish and other things that will quickly dart out of the way, because you can quickly snap, or they can lunge forward kind of snake-like, but they can also lunge off to the side and grab things. And even if it gets a little bit away, that beak is so long that it'll end up still grabbing them. So dang cool.
All right, guys. So look at that. Wow. Look at that. These guys, and I'm not holding him really tight at the neck either. This is just to show you guys the fangs. And this is a non-venomous snake, guys. Look at that.
Okay, so this is a very easy one to think must be AI, because those teeth look like what people who don't know anything about snakes think snake teeth look like. Thing is, though, that's real. That's an emerald tree boa, and their teeth are enormous. They're massive. He calls these fangs, they're not fangs, but they are very fang-like. In fact, just like the fangs of vipers, they have to fold down in order to fit in the mouth when it's closed. So they fold back and then they extend out, very much like viper teeth. And I have had the opportunity to see what these teeth can do. We have an emerald tree boa here at Clint's Reptile Room, and one of our employees was handling them. I had never seen blood spray out of a person from a snake bite before, but now I have. In fact, I have a video of the whole aftermath. It looks like some sort of serious crime occurred. It was amazing. Scary teeth, wild. Definitely, he's like I said, ours will bite. He's pretty good, but he's just a lazy biter. He doesn't strike, but he just comes and just yowza. Okay, so just for starters, it says the crocodiles in Mexico climb trees up to 9 meters in height to regulate their body temperature. And then it shows us. I'll tell you, the first crocodile, like I've never seen a crocodile climb a tree, but if I ever saw a crocodile attempting to climb a tree, it would probably look quite a bit like that. That said, this is definitely AI. Just right off the bat, like I found this behavior really unlikely. If for no other reason than this is a pretty large, heavy animal. Like, what happens if they fall? They're not really built to take falls from height. When you get to be this large and heavy, you tend to get really, really injured. But that said, there are turtles that climb trees. So something like this, while it seems implausible, and in my world where I doubt any video that shows me something I'm not used to, it's probably not impossible. I shouldn't just eliminate it because it seems weird and I've never seen this before. That said, it's the scoots on its tail and things as it's climbing the tree are quite bizarre. And the biggest giveaway is at one point it opens its mouth and the lower jaw like opens in the middle of it doesn't open with the mouth. So that was a pretty dead giveaway.
来了，嗨，多多讲是吧？摇脱了，哎，是那个。你这样子吃不到了啦。特殊的食性，以前还不懂的时候，我们叫喇叭嘴吸天下。吃头。哦，那你们知道它为什么嘴巴会伸出这样子吗？你有跟他们介绍吗？还没，还来不及，大家已经看了。哎，吃进去。他搞不了。吃进去，吃进去，吃进去，已经这个样子，把它包进去了。真的，那这里完全都不挣扎啊，因为它喇叭嘴伸出来以后，它周边会有那个触手，有没有？它会适当胰岛素，那胰岛素会让中招的鱼类瞬间酸软无力，那就看到你不挣扎，就这样被它吃掉。我记录了16年，就你们今天才真的看到这个画面，所以你们放心哦。谢谢。我刚才看到的时候，我还叫他们来看。现在卡在那里，现在卡在它前面。现在它前面知道玉螺如果吃到河豚会怎么办吗？河豚会被它吃到的那一瞬间直接膨胀。然后它一样把它吞进去以后，因为它膨胀有空气的啊，就会像钓鱼的钓一样这样转。
Okay, I kept a close eye on that little shrimp that went over the top of him. This is real. This is a snail eating a fish. And I think, if I had to guess, I think this might be a cone snail, which I don't know if you're familiar with cone snails. I've been afraid of cone snails for a while because they have a super deadly neurotoxin. In fact, if you watch Jurassic Park: The Lost World, they talk about their dart gun and that they have loaded up with the venom of a cone snail. He tells him, don't, is there an antidote? And he goes, what, in case you have an accident? Don't, you'd be dead before you knew you had an accident. I don't think it's really that powerful, but I did at least hear of a Marine that picked up 2 of them and they both got him in the neck at the same time and he died in like 9 seconds. I'm not positive that like I haven't been able to verify that story, but also when I first heard that story, it was from a somewhat reputable source. So I just haven't been able to find it again. Anyway, a very, very potent neurotoxin, which is kind of what you need to have if you're a snail that hunts fish. You need to be able to stop them from fleeing quickly, because if they get away just a little bit, they're gone. Same thing goes for like sea snakes. Sea snakes have a very, very potent neurotoxin because they need to stop fish from fleeing immediately. If you're a rattlesnake, you can bite something and it can wander off and you can follow it. But if it wanders off into the ocean, it's gone.
Okay, that sounds like a pretty dangerous creature.
Yeah.
Let's look at some other dangerous creatures.
All right.
And tell us how much danger these people were really in.
Okay.
This is my highly venomous 13-foot long king cobra Rusty. What is up, bud? Everybody always says in the comments that they think Rusty doesn't have his fangs or he's a venomoid, which means his venom glands are taken out. But he is a 13-foot long, completely venomous cobra who can literally pack a punch. These guys have enough venom. Their venom yield is gigantic. They have enough venom to drop 20 men or even a full-grown elephant. Now, lucky enough for me, I've raised Rusty up since he was a tiny little baby. Like, literally, he was probably 2 feet long when I got him. So we have a very, very great relationship, as you can tell. He rarely ever hisses. The only time he is defensive is when he is in his enclosure. And as you can see, now that he is out of his enclosure, he's a freaking puppy dog. Like, look how big this snake is. His tail is literally wrapped around my leg, and I just let him crawl all around me and do his thing. Obviously, I want to watch that head and make sure there's no funny business. But like I said, we have a great relationship, and he is just absolutely awesome. And speaking of that, this is the new Rusty shirt that I have. A bunch of people were saying that they think it's AI. It's definitely not AI. My buddy Jay Tomsky was over here hanging out. He actually took this photo with his camera, and I thought it was just enough to put it on a t-shirt. You guys want a Tyler Nolan Tattoos Rusty shirt, go on my website and get one for your own. Just such an awesome, handsome man. He's so well behaved, absolute sweetheart, and we definitely have a really good relationship and understanding of each other. I've never put him in the position of being fearful of me, so he knows nothing but love and kindness. I've never like grabbed him aggressively, or I don't showboat him and try to piss him off and get him to hood up. It's just all nice interactions just like this with my big, handsome man. And now very, very soon, guys, another reason why you should buy a shirt, it's going to help me give him a new upgrade. So right now I have him in this 6-foot Vision. These cages are made by Vision right here. But very soon we're going to be moving all these cages down, and we're going to build him a gigantic walk-in enclosure in the whole back of my room. Because look how big he is, guys. He is just a freaking monster.
Okay, so that is my friend Tyler. He is, okay, I'll start by saying that is a real large, not fully grown, but a very large king cobra. I have no reason to doubt that it has all of its venom. There's nothing about Tyler that would lead me to think that he would not handle that snake that way just because it has all of its venom. In fact, I think that would take all the fun of it, out of it for him if it didn't have all of its venom. And truth be told, king cobras are very intelligent snakes. That snake has been raised, like he said. It has no reason to fear humans. There are only 2 reasons a snake is going to bite you. A snake will bite you because it's afraid of you, or because it thinks it's getting food. This snake does not fear Tyler. Never had a reason to fear humans. You know, he's had nothing but good experiences with humans all his life. And so a food response would probably be the only reason he would bite. Also, just something to mention, he'd probably hood up if he was afraid. And so that's a nice thing with these guys. The most venomous snakes that I'll handle this way are my false water cobras. They also hood up if they're nervous. Just because they hood doesn't mean they're going to bite, but if they're not hooded, it means they're pretty calm, pretty relaxed. And so that makes it easier to read. Tyler's very good at reading king cobras, which are not true cobras. At one point he said this is a cobra. I'm sure he knows that they're not, but they're closer to mambas. But he's very good at reading them. He has made one significant error with a king cobra in the past. And if you ask him to hold up his hands, you'll be able to see the consequences of that slight error. But the truth is, that snake is very unlikely to bite him right then. In fact, his likelihood of being bitten by that king cobra is probably pretty similar to my likelihood of being bitten by my false water cobra at some point. The only difference will be the consequences if one of us are bitten. There is a far greater than 0% chance at some point, handling these snakes this way, that one of us will be bitten. If I'm bitten by the false water cobra, that's a significant venom. Like, it's not going to kill me, but my whole week will be different as a consequence. However, if he is bitten by that snake, he could easily die. And if he doesn't die, he's going to be in the hospital for a long time. There might be long-term effects. He might not have all of his digits. And it could easily cost him his life. It's going to be very, very significant for the reptile hobby, for his ability to keep venomous snakes in the future. So he's taking a significant risk by handling the snake this way. So much danger. and I get more anxiety, I think, watching that because just about a year ago, I was in a place where this sort of a thing could have easily happened. It was really interesting being where we were. So I had an absolutely unforgettable time in Africa, being out seeing wild lions. I mean, it's one of the most unforgettable experiences of my life. It made more of an impression on me than diving with great white sharks did, than any of the other cool stuff that we did on that trip. Lions are incredible, but it was there were a lot of situations we had these sort of lodges like this that are still open to the elements. So cool, but also I know there are elephants, rhinos, Cape buffalo, leopards, and lions all right around. Hyenas absolutely in camp every night. I was a couple feet from and just a little bit of canvas away from a whole bunch of hyenas every night. But the lions, I knew the lions were maybe a kilometer away. Like they're not far. We didn't have to go far to start running into lions. And I will tell you, inside of our canvas tents, that was like the only place where we felt like, okay, lions shouldn't come in here. But like the showers, it's just like there's no door even on the shower. It's just kind of like a little maze. There's nothing to stop a lion from walking in there with you. And if a lion decided to come in there and kill you, like there'd be nothing anybody would be able to do about it. If that lion had decided to kill that guy, like he'd just be dead. And it's not like that happens really rarely. Lions absolutely do kill people. Lions are very, very dangerous animals. And that's terrifying and amazing.
Alright guys, I found a very rare lizard right here. I'm not sure what kind. Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, go! Oh my gosh! No! What's it? I'm trying. No! Oh, bro, I never.
So that is a spiny-tailed iguana, and it says aggressive lizard here. I think this actually really well demonstrates the difference between an aggressive animal and a defensive animal. That animal is just trying to not die, right? That guy is acting quite crazy. He's the one being the aggressor. It is just standing there. There's nowhere for it to go. So green iguanas, if you run into them, they tend to hang out near or over water. And so if they get scared, they just drop into the water. But the spiny-tailed iguanas tend to usually go to a hole. They go to ground. It looks to me like this iguana's escape path is to go under this hole under the fence. And it probably has a hole it would go in. But it couldn't get to its hole. This guy's got it there. And so all it can do is bite if attacked. And so it's there with its mouth open, just trying to be as big and scary as it can be. But you notice it's never coming towards the guy. It's never the aggressor. So it's not an aggressive lizard. This is a purely defensive lizard. As far as how much it can hurt you, I mean, that iguana is big enough to bite your fingers off. And so there's something to consider. A bite from an iguana that bad is very unpleasant. Very, very unpleasant. That is a hippo charging a safari vehicle. It looked like as it was backing away, which you want to be really good at backing up if you're going to be trying to outrun a hippo that way. You can see why they kill so many people. Hippos are... That one was being pretty aggressive. It's mostly defending its territory, but that was very aggressive. They're incredibly strong. Like... You'd be shocked how easily that hippo could probably lift up a big portion of that truck and maybe toss it off to a side. It can definitely kill you on foot in a real hurry. That's a serious animal. I don't think this is the most dangerous thing we've seen in this section, but that's certainly a very dangerous animal acting in a way that is very dangerous. I will tell you, this is a dangerous situation, especially if you were alone, and he's not alone. So that's a lot of stupid things were done here, but that's not the dumbest thing. I'll tell you how I feed large constrictors like this. So the thing is, large snakes miss sometimes, especially if you are at least as warm and alive and mammally as the thing that you're trying to get them to eat. So you want them to dial in on this, but he's come out and he's missed, and they see heat. He's still coming until he feels flesh, and now he's got it. And you've been giving him the scent of food all this time. That snake is now very likely to wrap this person. And a snake this big, once it wraps you, that is big enough to kill you by constriction. Doesn't actually happen very often that a captive snake kills somebody, but this is how it would happen, especially if you were alone. Those other people, if they know what they're doing, should be able to get the snake off of him. They can do this by hopefully just doing something like hand sanitizer in the mouth, but also you can bend back the tail. Hopefully you don't have to break its tail, but I mean, this could be a life and death situation. A very, very big mishap. Here's how I feed my large snakes. And I don't have any snakes quite this large, but still big enough that I wouldn't want something like this to happen. I get some long hemostats, so big kind of scissor-like tongs. I grab the feeder. I open the door a little bit and stick it in and close the door so it's only open about this far, so even if it misses, it can't come back through. And I wiggle that around, I let it get it, and then I pull the tongs out. And I still don't do that when I'm alone, because if I did it really wrong and I got wrapped, I wouldn't be able to free myself. So this is potentially a dangerous situation caused by a very foolish choice in how he's feeding the snake.
Yeah, that was crazy. Before we get to our last video, I just want to say that we haven't done this in a while. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of great videos saved up. So I want to invite our audience to weigh in the comments and tell us if they'd like to see more from this series sooner than later.
Okay.
We certainly have the videos. But along those lines, this last video makes some pretty amazing claims. Are they true?
Okay.
Candace just did a tweet the other day that said dinosaurs are fake. What do you guys think about that?
I didn't see that.
Y'all didn't see that?
one.
No. The older I get, the more absurd the concept of dinosaurs roam the earth until a great big meteor hit it. And so, and Candace is right, because if you look into the dinosaur stuff, we didn't start finding dinosaur bones until like the 1800s, like 1870. And then all of a sudden they were able to find like hundreds of species of dinosaurs. And it was, these people were competing, and a lot of times they were finding bones from like a giraffe or something, right? And they were saying that it was a dinosaur. Anytime you've ever been to a museum, you're not looking at an actual dinosaur bone. What you're looking at a copy of a bone, a replica.
They say like what 70-80% of what you're looking at is
it's 100%. It's not 80 or 90. There's no real dinosaur bones on display anywhere.
Okay, that was a big one. So, some of what he said was true and some was not true. He said the first dinosaur bones that we found were in the 1870s. I think the first dinosaur was, the first non-avian dinosaur was described somewhere in the early 1800s. So, that's not way far off. Like, it's not importantly far off, but that's a little bit factually inaccurate. But then after we started finding them and describing them, we knew what they were, we started finding a lot of them. Almost like once we knew that these were out there, we started actively looking for them. But I will say, and when this sort of thing happens, it's so bad for science. But the bone wars and just a lot of the competition for discovery did lead to some people, not everybody involved, but some people doing some very dishonest and unethical things. And that shines a bad light on the entire field of paleontology, and that stinks. But I think the really important claim that he made here is that 100% of the bones in museums are not real. That there are no real dinosaur bones on display anywhere. And that is not true at all. Now, it is true that some of the skeletons on display are casts. For example, there are way more museums that want to display a Tyrannosaurus Rex than there are complete or near complete Tyrannosaurus Rex skeletons in existence, at least that are known and discovered and prepared and assembled. And so, some of the dinosaurs that you'll see in museums are the original bones, which are very heavy, but they're there. And some of the skeletons that you'll see are casts of the original bones, so kind of copies made by putting silicone over the original bones and then pouring in a resin inside of them and making a cast that is like essentially like a three-dimensional photocopy of the original bones, and then putting that skeleton on display. But and so it is true that a fair percentage of the bones that you see are casts instead of original bones, but the claim that there are no real skeletons on display anywhere is insane. With respect to the interview about Candace Owens, that had been going around for a while. It looks like they had a tweet about her saying that they're fake. I kept seeing the same clip being shared over and over again about her saying that dinosaurs are fake.
Looked up to her and I was like, dinosaurs? That seems pretty fake and gay.
For the longest time, I couldn't figure out where she'd said this. Like, I was trying to find the original context. Like, so it's one thing to see something out of context. Like, I spend a fair amount of time, say, in our creationist videos, trying to restate accurately the arguments that the creationists are making. If you just clip those out of context, though, it's going to look like I'm making a creationist argument all the time, or an anti-evolution argument. And so I didn't want to just assume that I understood everything based on these out-of-context clips that I'd seen. I did finally find the full interview, and I will tell you that in context, what she had to say was even crazier than what it sounded like she was saying out of context. I have been considering doing a video responding to that interview and addressing some of the points that she'd made about whether or not dinosaurs are real. And if that's something that you guys are interested in, please let me know. I had something we could do in Dinosaur December, if not before. So let me know if you want me to address Candace Owens' arguments that dinosaurs aren't real. But I think that's it. So let us know also if you want us to do this again. And as always, like and subscribe. We hope to see you real soon.
That's sexy is what it is.
I'm sorry, did you just call that thing kangaroo feet sexy?
What they were doing with that, I don't know. Gross.
Yeah.
TVMA over here.
He's been buying pictures. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are aware, Will pulled out his phone just now and booked a flight to Australia. That's how into that foot he was.
Oh man.
Checks out.
Yeah.
Checks out.